My earliest memories of drawing are actually quite clear. When I was maybe 2 or 3 years old, my grandfather would draw with me quite patiently. Don't know if he was any good at drawing, but I certainly became very interested in making marks and making a picture on paper. And I think that stayed with me as a good thing to do. I think I enjoyed most that I could make things, I could just make them up and create something out of my head, some kind of fantasy thing. I just liked making it real by drawing it. My current work is largely to do with two things. One aspect is figurative, has Japanese figures in imaginary gardens. They're not intended to be real spaces. They're colourful and dreamlike and fantasy looking. They're supposed to be quite calm, quite contemplative, very decorative and escape, if you like. The still life paintings are made from, again, lots of pattern. Japanese influence is very strong. The colour will be bright, but I'm not very interested in making the fabric and the landscape realistic. I like the still life to be a conglomeration of all the things that do exist in front of me if I've set it up, but I will change it into something flat and pattern-like. This work comes from a real love of Japanese sort of perspective, Japanese ways of making things, a lack of realism. There's a flatness about them that I like, the idea of the flat patterned fabric that doesn't have folds, or it isn't painted in a representational way, but they are quite clearly figures, and they're quite clearly in a garden of sorts. The environment I like to be fairly quiet. Sometimes I like music, but more often than not I like it to be quiet. Very seldom do I start painting early in the morning. That's not because I can't do early mornings. It's because I tend to come into my own or something. If I start after lunch, I can very often end up painting really quite late. To make a painting, I think I just doodle and sketch and think about it for quite a long time. Sometimes I think about the sketches for the paintings, or I'll work on something, the preparatory work for a painting, while I'm watching television or looking out the window, or doing something else as well. It's as if only half my brain is involved in actually making the sketch and putting the colour on it and things. I think I work better at the sketch level or at the preparatory level when I'm not completely focused on it. I don't know why that works, but it does. Patterns on textiles in particular are interesting to me because I like making that. I like sewing and making embroideries and tapestries and things like that. And I like to look at and depict in the paintings patterns and tapestries and textures and things that people have made. That I have just a great admiration for the fact that somebody can make this beautiful fabric or tapestry or whatever, and just it's the aspect of people having made it that is attractive, and sometimes just the simple beauty of something that's all thought about and stitched, and the patience and the focus taken to make that. I really like that. That interest in textiles definitely comes from, I had relatives in India when I was small, and around their houses there was lots of patterned stuff that was quite un-Scottish in its appearance, and my mother was very interested in embroidery and making pictures with threads and so on. Sometimes things affect you and you don't even realise that at the time, and then years later something will come back and it just strikes a chord and you remember it. You know, early experiences, I think, are very, very important. Art education, it seems to me to be going on and on and on, and it seems to just seep through everything. But while I was in college, the effect of that on my current work is quite real, because I do still experiment with paint in ways that I started to know about when I was in college. They're very rarely actually directly copied from some piece of work that already exists. There's something about, particularly with Japanese fabric and patterns, that the spacing and the way that they're, and there's also certain motifs that I really like, that are usually kind of natural forms, might be pine trees or plum blossoms or something like that, or the Japanese, but the cranes. So things like that really do, but they're generally made up, but drawing on that bank of stuff that lurks around in your head. Flattening the perspective seems to me far more interesting. It makes things, I like that, the effect of things being like a patchwork, which goes back to the Japanese prints and how things are joined up, you know, areas of pattern just joining together. It seems quite dull to me to focus on the folds of the fabric. Obviously I've done that, but I much prefer to make the paintings I make with flat fabric so that the pattern will run right to the edge. But again, that's not a rule, it's just something that I like. I'm attracted to that, as if the pieces are just cut out and stuck together. Culture's obviously Japan. When I was at art college, I started to be interested in Japanese ceramics, which led on to just general Japanese everything, and just how there seems to be a certain flavour of simplicity or order about that kind of art. Indian, for the pattern and colour. There's a lot of religious Indian art that I really like, not particularly because of the religion, but because of the art and what comes out of it. I like bright colours for the same reason as anyone does, I think, just because they make me happy. Strangely enough though, when I was much younger, my art used to be much more toned down. I think I still liked bright colour, but I never would use it in anything that I was making. But now, as I've got older, I find that it's just what I automatically associate with my own work is colour. Why do I paint? I paint just because I like it. I like the focus of it. I like making things, any kind of things, but I also still like the same as I liked when I was little, to make the thing, just to create a made-up thing on a flat surface. I just like doing that. And I think you would have to really like it in order to do something like painting. There wouldn't be any reason to paint unless you really enjoyed it. For me, it's just fun.